It's strange how a room can feel crowded one moment and unbearably silent the next. Just minutes ago, Mara's home had been filled with warm laughter, clinking glasses, and the fluttering noise of birthday ribbons brushing against each other whenever someone walked by. But now, in the heavy quiet that followed the last closing door, she felt the stillness settle around her like a second skin. She stood barefoot in the middle of the living room, a half-empty plate balanced loosely in one hand and a crumpled napkin in the other. The faint hum of the refrigerator was suddenly loud, almost intrusive. The smell of vanilla cake lingered in the air, but even that sweetness felt tired tonight. She had turned 48 today, yet she didn't feel older, she felt worn down. As if time had rubbed pieces off her slowly, without permission, without warning. Her smile had done its job through the evening, polite and practiced, but now, in the quiet, it slipped away, leaving only the truth she'd learned to hide. She felt alone, deeply, achingly alone. Mara walked past the scattered cups and ribbon tails on the floor, her steps slow and thoughtful. 10 years had passed since she'd started celebrating birthdays without a partner beside her. When her husband walked away a decade ago, she never had the luxury of falling apart. Aiden had been just 10 then, wide-eyed, confused, clinging to her shirt like she was the last safe place in his world. And she had held on stronger than she ever believed she could be. She took double shifts at the local library, patched up leaky faucets herself, learned to fix the washing machine with YouTube videos and a stubborn will. Each time something broke, she'd whisper to her reflection, "You can do this, Mara." And she did. But what she never noticed was how quietly her own story had been fading while she held everyone else's together. She would sit by the kitchen window each night after Aiden fell asleep, sipping tea while staring into the dark garden. She often wondered if being strong meant pushing forward, or slowly dissolving behind her responsibilities. Among the people who came to her birthday tonight had been Julian, her next-door neighbor, man she'd known for years but never quite understood. He was 40 now, younger than her, but carrying a kind of quiet sadness that made him feel older. Julian had lost his wife in an accident 3 years earlier. No one talked about it directly. But grief had a way of showing itself in the gaps between someone's words, and she had seen it in him often. Tonight, though, he had been everywhere, refilling glasses, telling soft jokes that made people laugh without making noise, and checking on her from time to time with a look that felt strangely grounding. When the final goodbye was said and the last car rolled down the street, Julian had lingered behind, hands in his pockets, steady gaze on her face. "Let me help you clean up," he'd said. Mara had shaken her head gently. "You've already done enough, Julian." But he only smiled, that soft, steady smile that didn't feel polite, didn't feel obligatory. "I don't mind," he'd replied quietly. "Besides, I don't think either of us is ready for silence yet." Then he rolled up his sleeves as if he belonged there. As they cleaned, the house grew even quieter. The laughter was gone. The music had stopped. Only running water and the soft clink of plates filled the space. Mara caught herself watching Julian move. There was a deliberate, unhurried calm about him, as though he understood the weight of silence and knew how to stand inside it without discomfort. After a while, she pulled out a chair and sat, feeling exhaustion push heavily against her shoulders. Julian dried his hands and joined her, setting a glass of water on the table. "Drink," he said softly. She took it, offering a small smile. "I guess I didn't realize how tired I was." He nodded, leaning back slightly. "You've been running all day, actually." "You've been running for years." She blinked, startled. "What do you mean?" His gaze held hers, steady, not intrusive. "You're always holding everything together. People see your strength, but they rarely see the cost." His words hit her deep, landing in a part of her she thought had grown numb. Everyone around her saw the dependable woman, the cheerful neighbor, the mother who never complained. But no one had looked long enough to notice the cracks beneath. Until now. Mara lowered her eyes, blinking quickly as if she could force her emotions back into place. "I'm fine," she said, the lie she'd perfected over the years slipping out automatically. Julian shook his head gently. "You're surviving, Mara. That's not the same thing. Silence followed, thick and intimate. Her gaze drifted toward the wall where old photographs hung. Aiden's school pictures, snapshots of vacations, even her wedding photo still in a silver frame. She almost laughed at the irony. It was strange how photographs preserved happiness as though life would stay that way forever. She remembered the woman in that wedding picture, bright-eyed, full of plans and color. She had wanted to travel, paint, right? But responsibilities had their own gravity, and dreams were often the first to be pulled under. I used to think, she murmured, that if I kept everyone else happy, maybe I'd feel happy too. Julian nodded softly. And did you? Mara let out a small, sad laugh. Maybe for a while, until pretending just became a habit. He didn't try to fill the space with words. Instead, he rested his hand near hers on the table, not touching, just close enough for warmth. That quiet nearness said more than any speech could. Minutes slipped by like gentle whispers. Julian began telling her small, comforting stories from his week about a bird that had nested in his mailbox, about burning his toast that morning, about how his late wife used to tease him that he couldn't boil water without supervision. Mara laughed, frailly laughed for the first time that night. The sound surprised her. It felt like remembering how to breathe after years of holding her breath. Julian's eyes softened. That laugh, he said quietly, that's what people should see when they talk to you. Not just a woman who gets everything done, but the woman who still knows how to feel. Her chest tightened, something warm and unfamiliar unfurling inside her. You make me sound like I'm more than I think I am. Julian held her gaze. Maybe you are. She looked away, feeling something shift, something slow and subtle but real. The clock slipped past midnight. The candles on the table burned low, casting wavering shadows on the walls. Julian looked at her with a thoughtful expression. Mara, can I tell you something? She nodded, unsure what to expect. I've watched you for years, he began. He paused, then chuckled nervously. Not in a weird way, I promise. Just. I've seen you try so hard, care so much. Even when you're exhausted. His voice dropped slightly, becoming almost tender. You deserve to be seen, not just as a mother or a neighbor, but as you, the woman who gives, who endures, who still shows up even when she's hurting. Tears welled in her eyes unexpectedly. No one had spoken to her like that in so long. Something inside her cracked open, not painfully, but in a slow release, like a tight knot finally loosening. She realized then that her story wasn't over. She hadn't disappeared. She wasn't invisible. When she finally stood, Julian rose with her. I should go, he said softly. She nodded, though the moment felt too fragile to end. Thank you. For everything tonight. He smiled, hand on the doorknob. Happy birthday, Mara. And for what it's worth, I hope this year brings you back to yourself. As he stepped into the cool night, Mara stood in the doorway watching him walk into the shadows cast by the streetlights. She didn't feel empty anymore. For the first time in years, she felt something like hope stirring gently beneath her ribs, quiet but alive. She closed the door slowly, leaning against it for a moment, letting the warmth of the night settle inside her. What she didn't expect was the soft tap at the door only seconds later.